where we have a more truly distributed architecture across the internet. Does that start to solve things? Maybe. I hope so. I think it's possible.
Do we think enough about cable companies and their role in the internet?
No. No, we don't.
And so what should we think about when we think about that?
Well, I think we did when it came to net neutrality, but we lost that one because of the corruption, not of the ad market or not of the VC market or not of the public market, but the corruption of government. Cue Larry Lessig.
Yeah.
And the other piece of this, which Larry was certainly prescient about in ways I didn't fully understand at the time, is copyright. And the fascinating thing about Sopa Pipa in the U.S. was that it was Hollywood versus Silicon Valley. And this whole notion of the property metaphor, the property metaphor for creativity, the property metaphor for information and knowledge, the property metaphor for data, the property metaphor for the internet itself. I think that's our problem. I think we have to get past the property metaphor because that's what we're fighting over.
Yeah.
And that's what people are trying to protect. If you look at all the regulation in Europe, it's all been, most of it has been old publishing companies trying to exercise protectionism around a model of property.
I mean, one interesting aspect is, you may disagree, I would say Silicon Valley is now heavily lobbying, but cable companies seem to have lobbied around the world and got pretty much everything they wanted to protect their old interests. And they've moved from where they needed our minutes and our megabytes, like, it's generally not capped, but they seem to have very smoothly transitioned to remain completely profitable in an internet era. The media tried to lobby and basically went like ass over head, which is usually a good sign of where power lies. It's the place that can lobby well.
Yeah, it wasn't always thus. I mean, I'm forgetting his name. I can look it up if you want, but there was a brilliant prescient memo written at AT&T Bell Labs years ago about the dumb network and how AT&T wanted to be the smart network. All the value in the smart was in the network. And he said, no, the future is the dumb network. And he basically had to leave the company because he was so rejected. And then he started conferences. He's a wonderful man, and I'm just blanking on his name.
Oh, please send it to me.
I'll find it because he does great. He did a great conference on this. I'll find the tote bag, and that will spark my memory. And if you can find that memo, it's brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's
from the day.
That guy, right?
I think there was a time when we thought that the phone companies were doomed. Skype comes along, right? The cable companies were doomed. YouTube comes along. They are so venal. They managed to think selfishly far more than Google and Facebook did. Right? They protected themselves on every front, including politically. And they protected their oligopoly.
I guess when you own the physical architecture, that's quite...
You got them by the...
Yeah, and like that's really underappreciated, I think.
Very much so. Very much so.
Can you name a cable company CEO?
Brian Roberts.
Yeah. Given how much
versus
knows,
Mark Zuckerberg, yes,
everyone knows. So they said, I know he's not CEO, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, right.
And like, it's amazing how well they've also done it, just not being in this debate.
Absolutely, they've got brilliant PR, brilliant lobbying, lots of money in it. I think
they're almost deliberately boring, so that we can't.
Oh yes, absolutely. And they wisely haven't used our data against us.
Yeah.
Right. They haven't been caught doing it. Quite the same way, though. They did cooperate with the government.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the interesting thing. The Washington Post, when they did PRISM, screwed. We didn't, and we got all the shit for that. We never changed a word of our PRISM story. Day one, we said the tech companies weren't in on it.
Right, they weren't.
And because the Washington Post screwed it up, everyone said that we got it wrong.
I argued that for ages at the Times, yes.
Glenn Strapp got it wrong, but we fixed it. But the cable companies were willingly collaborating the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, my favourite thing is that actually works by real prisms. They split the light, the fibre optic.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's lovely. Yes.
So it's why quantum, not quantum computing, but quantum encryption. You can't split it if it's a single photon.
Oh.
It's literally pretty much as simple as that. if you take something off, it corrupts the packet. It's just you've got to deal with the quantum effect.
Oh, that's interesting.
Cool, isn't it?
That is cool, yeah.
But yeah, they are much closer to government, which may sort of help them with it. But,
Right, so in your view, who's in charge of the internet?
I mean, I tend to say who owns the infrastructure, who puts the money in, who sets the rules. I think it's the same people that run everything else. I think it's banks, because BCs are from banks, really.
Yes.
It's cable companies, and
it's regulators now.
Yeah. I think like the days where regulators were way behind, or like weren't interested. Regulators aren't sold on the idea of the internet as a free space anymore. They want to get involved. They haven't worked it out yet, but they're not. I mean, look at Ajit Pai. Look at if you can't say he has no control of the internet.
Right. The question is, it's like the question of the Trumpists in the U.S. Is this the beginning of a authoritarian rise, or is this the last gasp of the old white man? I obviously like to think it's the last gasp of the old white man. And
but that may just come down to whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, surely.
Well, the same with the internet, I think. Same for every institution in society today. Right? They are all challenged on a long timeline. It may take a century to fully challenge them. They are all challenged in fundamental ways. And, so there was John Naughton, before he went dystopian, lovely guy, wrote a column years ago that I've quoted thousands of times, where he said, and this is probably where this goes, imagine you're on a bridge in Mainz in the year, whatever he said, 1472, and you ask the good citizens of Mainz whether that invention of Gutenberg's down the road will disrupt the Catholic Church, fuel the Reformation, spark the scientific revolution, change our notion of education, thus of childhood itself, and I would add, change our notion of the nation. Wow, you're being a technological determinist, you asshole. No. And it did all those things. So I would say that our idea of the nation is post-movable type. It is not immutable. Our very idea of the nation is what's being challenged right now. That's why we see the rise of nationalism. The idea that you can reinvent and take over the idea of the nation is what scares the shit out of the people who are in charge of it.
See that?
So we're seeing a struggle here. Nothing to do with technology, except that it's technology that allowed Living While Black, hashtag, to rise and to tell a story that has existed for a century but was never told in mainstream newsrooms because they were run by white men.
I mean, scale seems to always be the upside and the downside of the internet.
Yes.
Like, if you have a fringe interest, you can find lots of people who share it, whereas before you would have been alone. Now, if your fringe interest is some horrible conspiracy theory about Jews, that's bad. If it's that you like doing arts and crafts and you get to good tips, it's great. If it's being gay in a small town, it's good.
Exactly.
Like, maybe some of the objections are just about scale. But
yeah, and I think we move. Part of the chapter in my Hope book is the move from scale to depth. The scale is now a very thin view of as many as you can. Depth is I know you well and I serve you better. Well, cue fears about data.
I was going to say this is where we have the cultural problem, though, as well. I mean, while the world is as different as it is, the sort of internet working as it does is going to be intrinsically full of tensions. That's not going to
never going to go away. Never going to go away. As has been true with publishing from the very beginning. Right?
But I mean, publishing makes sense on the national scale in a way that sort of that the internet doesn't. I guess it could do, but
publishing gave us the first notion of scale.
Yeah.
Right. The first idea that there was a reading public. I got in real trouble in one of my books where I didn't worship Habermas sufficiently, and dared to question some of what he said for my ignorance of being able to read his prose. And so I don't agree with his idealized view of the public sphere and the coffee houses. They were highly discriminatory and exclusionary. However, I think it is true that steam and press together created the notion of the mass and created a scale. Until we had steam, we didn't really have scale. and now we do. And so I think we could be coming to the end of the era of scale, but we haven't invented what follows.
That makes sense.
All right.
Right, I might write there. One thing I would like to ask you, which you